Good evening, bonsoir. Bienvenue à la séance ordinaire publique du 3 novembre. Welcome to the regular public meeting on November 3rd. Please rise for the national anthem. On va faire la reconnaissance territoriale. Nous reconnaissons avec respect l'emplacement de la ville de Bathurst en tant que terre ancestrale du peuple Micmac. Aujourd'hui, ces terres sont hôtes d'une population diverse, comprenant personnes natives du territoire et autres patries. Nous reconnaissons aussi avec respect l'histoire et les diverses cultures du peuple Micmac de la région. We respectfully acknowledge the city of Bathurst as the ancestral homeland of the Micmac. Today, these lands are homes to a diverse population of indigenous and other peoples. We also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Micmac in this region. On va à l'approbation de l'ordre du jour, adoption of the agenda. Ms. Parker.
That the agenda be approved as presented.
All right, I'll need someone to move. Councillor Bryant, seconded by Councillor Willett. Ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried. Ms. Parker, do we have any declaration of conflict of interest?
No conflicts of interest declared.
On va à l'approbation du procès verbal, séance ordinaire publique tenue le 20 octobre 2025. Ms. Parker.
That the minutes of the regular public meeting dated October 20th, 2025 be approved as circulated.
All right, I'll need someone to move. Councillor Scarry, seconded by Councillor Legacy. Ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried. On va aller sur les finances, dont on regarde le budget, fonds de fonctionnement général, sur des General Operation Fund. Madame Gauvin, vous allez aller en avant? Parfait, je vais vous donner le micro.
Merci beaucoup. So tonight we are able to kind of finalize, if council approves, a recommendation for tax rate for the year 2026. The other meetings that we had were public but working sessions, so we were able to kind of look into it, dive in, ask questions and everything, which brings us to be able to make recommendations tonight. So really what we're going to present is only the changes that were discussed with council at the last working session. And after that, we'll be able to make a recommendation. Since the other budgets, capital and utility, were kind of pretty much agreed upon, we won't be looking at those tonight. We're only looking at the general operating budget. And if everything goes through tonight, the next meeting would be on November 17th for the full set of resolutions and full presentations of the FOR budget, where it came from, how it was built, information for the public, and the whole finalization of them in submission to the province. But in order for us to do that, we need to have the okay from council to go forward with it to make sure that there's no more questions. So starting point on October 29th, when we ended the session, we had a leftover deficit of $376,000, which a part of that we needed to find more revenues, which at the time council had recommended or approved to balance, to take out probably an amount of around 150,000 from the reserve. You'll see tonight we won't need to, based on what we were able to finalize in our last checks. And then the other portion was the transition from Ward 2, because as part of the transition, there is a 6 years to go. This 2026 will be 4th year out of 6, which means they are incrementally increasing, and the Ward 1, which is the old city of Bathurst, is giving transition funding to the other ones. But every year they are catching up and increasing their tax rate as part of the transition from the municipal reform. So the changes that we made since we last were together on the 29th, I'll look at the expenses first just because it's easier. We notice when we always go with a fine comb, 10s, 20, 30, 40, as much as time as we need to review everything. We noticed that in the distribution of the grants that we had shown last time, we had forgotten the curling club that was already granted for a few years. So we increased the tourism grant that was already allocated by 15, but we decreased the leftover for the tourism grant by 15, for the discretionary that was left. We took out the Monument McFlurry project from 2026 because it would be given in 2025. So that opened up money to do the full aquatic center roof for $400,000 total, but we would need to put in most likely 140 more than what we had put in. That one would be contingent on us being able to get RDC funding for 40%. We also, as discussed, increased the paid cash to do full Ryan Road instead of just a portion of it. So we increased the transfer to capital by 225. And then we had said that we just received information for insurance that was able to create a decrease in expenses. So we decreased it by 31,000. And then we have a balancing line because when we finish everything kind of tilts between all the Ward 1s and Ward 2. So that's just a line for snow removal salt where we had seen that we could balance with that line. We decreased it by 6,000. On the revenue side, when we had looked at the capital, we had said that we would increase the project, that we would pay cash because we were having flexibility in doing so. So that's why you see an increase on top of 265. That's from the Ryan Road project and the $40,000 more for the aquatic center. So both together make the 265. So those were the changes that were agreed upon last council meeting, and the rest was going to be balanced with taking money from the reserve because we had an assessment freeze. However, when we went through a fine comb, we are still consolidating the financial statements from the aquatic center, so we're going line by line. It's a very exhaustive exercise, and we noticed that we had not integrated their 2024 surplus that is carried over in 2026. So if you remember back then, we had transferred them money in case they would make a deficit to make sure that we were covered. However, they didn't need it, but it was a no-risk transfer because if they didn't need it, it was going to come back to us. We forgot to put it back because it was coming back to us. So after last meeting, I kind of ding and something bothered me from a Councillor Legacy's comment, and thank you for that comment because I was at home and I trying to figure it out, but that's where it came back to us. So instead of taking it out from the reserve, we were able to balance the budget on a pre-increase tax for Ward 2. For Ward 2. So those are the changes that were made. So that brings us to the tax rate, and that's where the next decision comes. So 3 different tax rates, 3 different property assessments. Transition years is 6 years. We are at year 4. When we divide between shared services between Ward 1 and Ward 2, we have a warrant that is required of 14 million. North Tettagush, there's a warrant of 216. Bathurst and Big River and all the other locals that are not North Tettagush that are part of Ward 2, those ones are around 400. And then the old city of Bathurst would require a warrant of 13 million for a total of $28.5 million. That is when, without the transition, what it would be spread across every subunits. If you continue without the transition, because you need to go through without the transition to go to the tax rate, you need to take the shared services and allocate them between each subunits because they each have their own tax rates. You have the new warrant that are now higher for each. So North Tedigush, 955, Bathurst, Big River, and all the other ones, 1.7, and the old Bathurst city limits, 25.8 million, which is the same total of 28.5 million. If you take the assessment for 2026 and you take the current tax rate for each and you allocate the requirement of what they would need to have as a tax rate for each, without the transition, North Tedigush would increase by 18.35 cents. Big River, Bathurst, and the rest of Ward 2 would increase by 23.70, and the old Bathurst city limit would decrease another 2.3 cents. That would make the next tax rate. But of course, we can't do a jump of that extent. We haven't done jumps of that extent since the beginning of the transition. That is why it's a transition period. Because there's 3 years left, we take those tax rates or those increases and we divide them by 3, which gives us the recommended tax rates, which would be for North Tedigush an increase of 6.12 cents for the total of 96.70 cents. Then you would have Bathurst, Big River, the rest of Ward 2, an increase of 7.9 cents for the total tax rates of 95.90 cents. And then Old City of Bathurst would remain unchanged by 1.755 because they need to pay for the transition funding for the other locals to cover for their portion. So at the end of the day, if we put those tax rates in, it generates $174,000, which was the missing money to balance the budget that we showed on a few slides earlier. And it would create those tax rates. So really what we're looking for is, first, are there any questions? And 2, is council okay to go with those recommended tax rates? Because if those are approved, then the budget would be balanced without touching the reserve, which is quite exceptional because we were able to figure out a way in a year where we do have an assessment freeze and use the resources that we had as much as we could and allocate them without cutting services to citizens.
Madame Gauvin, before we go to questions, just to clarify for the citizens that are maybe watching on Facebook, with the reform, a subcommittee was put together, which myself and Councillor Branch, we had representation from North Tedigush. And it was agreed, maybe if you want to explain the
Yes.
6-year, maybe can you explain that just for transparency so people listening can understand the process?
Absolutely. So when the transition occurred, every municipality had a transition committee with a facilitator. For the city of Bathurst, the transition committee that was there at a time decided on the number of years. Some chose 2 years, 3 years, some chose 5, we chose 6, which was, I think, the maximum, if I remember correctly, to be able to ensure that the tax rates didn't increase too much for the ones that did have to increase. Because part of the municipal reform was that every locals that were part, in our case, that were part of the provincial government, so local districts that were under government jurisdictions, were going to be transferred capacity to other local governments, which in our case was City of Bathurst, and they needed to cover their share of shared services. So, for example, right now, before the transition, in our case, the Ward 1, which is the old City of Bathurst limits, were the only ones contributing to the Casey Irving Center, for example, or recreational services, or any services that were giving inside of city limits. However, everybody was contributing to using them. So now that the borders are enlarged, they are now having to pay their portion of the shared costs. So that's why when we do the budget, we do have a column that is called shared costs or shared services, because those services should be shared between everybody. Other municipalities, we have different formats. We have full cities that merge together versus us. We had very little change in the sense that we had local districts, which transfers from the government of New Brunswick. Ward 2, the roads are still being taken care of by the province. So on top of their tax rate, of course, they get charged a rate from the province for their roads. So that's why when we do fixing road or road services in the limits of Bathurst, and they say, okay, we're now a Bathurst, but they're not fixing my road, and they might be North Tiddigush or South Tiddigush, it's because the province is still responsible for those roads. So that's why you have different tax rates, because they can only be charged for the services that they do benefit from. So transportation is one where they don't benefit from, so we don't charge them within their tax rates. But if we asked them year one to pay for the full set of services, their tax rate would have increased way too much. So the transition committee said 6 years, and in the meantime, the higher tax rate provides transition funding to pay for their share in the meantime. So at one point, once everything is done, everybody will be at the tax rate where they should be, where nobody is funding anybody, and everybody's paying for their share of services in Bathurst. So long story short, 3 years later, that's where we are.
Thank you. And for just, again, clarification before I go to Councillor Branch, last year, Council lowered our property rate. So it was 1.775. We brought it down to 1.755.
Yes.
For Bathurst. It wasn't shown because the assessment was high, so we increased even though we decreased our taxes. Councillor Branch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just going by memory, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought the minimum period was 5 years and the max was 7. That's why we landed on 6 years.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure on the 6, but you may be right. We chose in between, or you chose in between the committee.
You had a good negotiator for Big River.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so we agreed with 6. All right, thank you. Okay, no other question.
Okay. So,
Is council okay with this? Any objections? No objections? Okay, we move forward.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to go to municipal bylaws, dont receipt of planning advisory committee recommendation, réception des recommandations du comité consultatif en matière d'urbanisme. Je vais vous donner le micro, Monsieur Bouffard.
Thank you. So this is in reference to rezoning request on Roy's Lane. So last week on October 28th, the Planning Advisory Committee did review the rezoning application for to allow the development of a mini home on the property located at 1058 Roy's Lane and bearing the PID 20931325. So the Planning Advisory Committee recommends that City Council approve the bylaw as proposed with the following conditions. So in addition to the use normally permitted in the R2-1 zone, it will be permitted to develop a mini home on the property bearing the PID I just mentioned. The type of building and the layout of the site must be consistent with the plan submitted by the applicant with its rezoning application. Any significant change to those plans will have to be approved by the Planning Advisory Committee, and for sure all the other provisions contained in the zoning bylaw continue to apply. So the first condition, basically, so the zoning remained the same, R2-1, but in the condition that are attached to the bylaw, it will be specified that in addition to the current use permitted in that zone, it will also be permitted to have a mini home on that property. So it's not for all the properties, specific to this property. And two, the applicant did submit to the city and to the Planning Advisory Committee the plans of the mini home that she proposed to install, and that mini home do fit, if you want, with the neighborhood. That's why we expect the project to comply with those plans. But if there is any change to the plan when the applicant files for the building permit, if we think the plans are different to those submitted, then we'll bring the application back to the Planning Advisory Committee for review and approval. So that's the recommendation of the Planning Advisory Committee.
All right, any questions? No? Okay. So we'll go to the hearing of objections or support regarding the proposed municipal plan amendment. Ms. Parker.
For the property located at 1058 Roy Lane, a public notice as required under Section 111 of the Community Planning Act regarding the draft amendment to the zoning bylaw was published. No written objections were received.
All right, I invite members of the public to express their opinions to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to the property located at 1058 Roy Lane. J'invite les membres du public à exprimer leur opinion sur les amendements proposés à l'arrêté de zonage pour la propriété située à 1058 Allée Roy. Et pour la troisième fois, I invite members of the public to express their opinions to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for the property located at 1058 Roy Lane. No objections. We move to proposed municipal and zoning bylaw, Roy Lane, 1058. First reading, Ms. Parker.
That the proposed bylaw 2025-08Z entitled A Bylaw to Amend Bylaw Number 2008-01 entitled The City of Bathurst Zoning Bylaw shall be read 3 times by title as per requirements specified in the Local Governance Act, subsection 15.3, and that the above-mentioned proposed bylaw may be examined by contacting the city clerk during regular office hours, and that the above-mentioned proposed bylaw shall be posted to the City of Bathurst website and Facebook page as per the Local Governance Act, paragraph 71C, and that the purpose of the above-mentioned proposed bylaw is to allow the development of a mini-home on the property located at 1058 Roy Lane and bearing PID 209-31325. Be it resolved that proposed bylaw 2025-08Z entitled A Bylaw to Amend Bylaw Number 2008-01 entitled The City of Bathurst Zoning Bylaw be read for the first time by title.
All right, I'll need someone to move. Councillor Burnett, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Do we have any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We go to the second reading bylaw 2025-08Z. Ms. Parker.
That bylaw 2025-08Z entitled A Bylaw to Amend Bylaw 2008-01 entitled The City of Bathurst Zoning Bylaw be read for the second time by title.
All right, I'll need someone to move. Deputy Mayor Knoll, seconded by Councillor Hondas. Ready for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We fall under draft resolution. Mr. Abernathy, we're going to be doing a quick overview for Miramichi Lane reduction. Right.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So this evening we're going to be looking to kind of finalize this. The consultants are looking to go ahead and finalize the design and go to tender for this project. It's a pretty significant project for next year, so I want to get it nice and early and make sure that we kind of beat the rush on projects for 2026. So essentially what we're doing here, it's a quick presentation just to examine the pros and cons of the 2-lane, the 3-lane, and the 4-lane, and then come to a recommendation at the end. So starting off with the 2-lane option, a list of the pros here is it's the lowest construction cost. We're going to end up saving about $1.5 million in savings over the 4 sections of project, and that's compared to the existing 4-lane. So if we were to just redo what's there, this will end up costing us $1.5 million less. There'll be lower maintenance costs, $30,000 a year approximate savings, and that's from hauling snow off of the right-of-ways. Right now, there's no room outside of the right-of-ways whatsoever to pile snow, and so any snow that's plowed off the road or the sidewalks needs to be picked up and trucked away and dumped elsewhere. Obviously, very inefficient, so that's something we wouldn't have to do anymore if there was room on the side of the street, which reducing the lanes would do. And also what that maintenance cost lowering allows us to do is to improve our maintenance efficiency everywhere else, right? So if we're not hauling snow on Miramichi Avenue, we are hauling it somewhere else, so our total operation is getting done a day or two faster each storm. The next one would be room for active transportation. So the current plan has the addition of a 10-foot wide active transportation trail on the west side of the street from Bridge Street until the old CN rail, which is our active transportation path. It will reduce speeds and driver confusion. It will increase bus stop safety. You often see buses on St. Peter Avenue or Miramichi Avenue stopping on the side and vehicles passing on the other side when there's 4 lanes of traffic, so that would eliminate that. What I wanted to discuss quickly about the capacity is whenever they're designing it for 2 lanes, they're not designing it for the current capacity. The current capacity is significantly below a 2-lane capacity, right? So we can't go any less than 2 lanes, obviously, but the 2-lane capacity, the 2-lane configuration has the capacity for 250% increase in traffic volumes. So there's certainly a valid argument there of we're going from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes, but what if we grow back to what we need in 4 lanes? We have the capacity there with just 2 lanes to grow at a 250% rate, which is unheard of growth. But if there was ever a major extraordinary development there certainly would still be the capacity there for that with 2 lanes. And then moving on to the cons of going down to 2 lanes, the growth would be capped at an unprecedented 250% without upgrades. So, and then right-hand turns for large vehicles may require a little extra attention. So a 53-foot trailer, if they're looking to turn into a narrow driveway on the side, they may have to make their way over into the oncoming lane to make that turn. Perfectly normal maneuver for any truck driver to do. They're trained well to do that. Okay, so that's 2-lane options. Any questions on the 2 lanes for now?
Nope.
Okay, I'll move on
Nope.
to...
Hold on.
Oh,
Councillor Burnett spoke too quickly.
No problem.
Through you to the
Yes.
speaker. The turnoff from going up Rough Waters Drive, is that still proposed to go to 90 degrees so that people can see up and down in that area?
It is, yes. Later on in the question slide, I'll show you the layout of those two intersections. Essentially, we're proposing a 3-lane going up Bridge Street and then a slip lane going on to Rough Waters, and then leaving Rough Waters is going to be at 90 degrees on Miramichi Avenue so that you can have a good view and turn right or left. Yeah.
But you still have the slip lane going in?
We have a slip lane going into Rough Waters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And exiting Rough Waters will come at a 90 degree. Yeah, like you just mentioned. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
All righty. We were asked to investigate a 3-lane option last time we were here, so we took a look at that. The pros is most likely to never need expansion, even with extreme growth. And the reason why is because a 3-lane gives you the capacity to be able to have left-hand turn lanes without backing up traffic. That's the reason why we have it on St. Anne Street, is there's major destinations on St. Anne, like ESN, Plessis School, Walmart, the Casey Irving Center. You have a significant amount of left-hand turn movements going into those major centers. On Miramichi Avenue, we don't have that. There's no significant left-hand turns anywhere. However, if there were to be a major development somewhere, something with 1,500 or 2,000 cars a day going to it, there's always the possibility to expand whenever we're from 2 lanes to go to 3 lanes and add a slip lane just at that one area. That's also an option, which I'll go over a little bit later. But the basic function of the 3-lane is to create that capacity to be able to wait to turn left when there's no gaps coming the other way, and traffic can keep flowing by you. So that's the purpose of the 3-lane. So it would also be slightly easier for right-hand turns for large vehicles because they wouldn't actually have to turn into oncoming traffic. They would come in. They would be able to go into that center lane and make their right-hand turn. Again, a perfectly reasonable maneuver for them to do. And then moving on to the cons of the 3-lane is a higher cost of construction. There would be an $800,000 extra as opposed to going 2 lanes. And then a higher maintenance cost, $35,000 a year, because we're looking at additional signage, additional line painting. It's pretty significant on St. Anne Street. And so we used that model to estimate the maintenance costs. Excuse me. And with the wider asphalt surface and vehicles being further away from each other, you're going to be looking at higher potential speeds and potential for head-on collisions. That's my main concern with the 3 lanes, is that you have a significant amount of people using that 3rd lane inappropriately. And that lane is described as a very dangerous lane. I'm not sure the name is super appropriate, but it's significant risk for high-speed head-on collisions there. So something we certainly want to avoid. There's quite a bit of driver confusion and illegal passing that goes on 3-lane roads, so something we want to avoid as well. Left-hand difficulty for Miramichi Avenue entrance. Because there's so little traffic on Miramichi Avenue now, it would be more difficult to turn left with a 3-lane because you're having to cross 2 lanes of traffic. You create driver confusion when turning left. What lane do I turn into when I go left? So there's added driver confusion. Safety concerns for school bus stops, as I mentioned earlier, that added lane adds extra distance for people to miss the school bus stop. And there's less flexibility within the right-of-way. So every lane which we go wider on the street removes our ability to use the remaining right-of-way for other purposes, such as hauling snow or active trails or anything like that. And so that extra lane doesn't bring enough of a benefit, in our opinion, to justify what we lose in return. And then going to the 4-lane, the pros. Oh, sorry, any questions on the 3-lane before we go ahead?
No.
I'm going to circle back at the end if anybody has any more. Yeah. And so moving on to the 4-lane option, the pros, it's the highest traffic capacity. There's 500% capacity of what's there now, so obviously significantly more than is needed. And it would be the easiest for right-hand turns for larger vehicles because they would have to go only into a same directional lane for them to make a right-hand turn. On the cons, it is the highest construction cost. It's $1.5 million more expensive than do 2 lanes. Higher maintenance costs, no room for piling snow. There's no room for active transportation outside of the street and sidewalks. There's higher speeds and safety risks because of the more surface area, larger space between vehicles, more comfort driving faster. There's no flexibility within the right-of-way. The 4 lanes and 2 sidewalks takes up the entire right-of-way, so there's no room within the right-of-way at all. And with that, closer proximity to houses. So in the current situation we have right now, there's some people walking up their front step and they're 3 feet away from the traveled roadway. Obviously, a safety concern and not ideal for those residents. So to our summary and recommendation, essentially the 2-lane, we feel balances cost, safety, and flexibility. The 3-lane has a moderate performance, a higher cost, and lower safety. The 4-lane has the highest capacity, however, it's the lowest safety and no active transportation. And so our recommendation is to adopt the 2-lane configuration to balance cost, safety, and multimodal needs. And so just to address one more time the instance of significant growth in the area, I know that's a concern. So in the 2-lane configuration, just because we're going down to 2 lanes and we did see unprecedented growth, it doesn't mean that we would have to go back to 4 lanes, right? So if you have growth in a certain area, in a specific left-hand turn movement, you can always add a single left-hand turning lane that we have there, and that would continue the flow of traffic.
Like we do on Vanier when you want to turn to go to Stade L'Amitié.
Exactly, yeah.
So you have just that small little section that you can go in.
Exactly, and so what that would require would be, since we do have that flexibility in the right-of-way, we have room on the sides now, we could widen out the street for about 70 or 100 meters, put that slip lane in, and then bring it back in. That would be a fairly cost-effective way to deal with that development. And again, if we're looking at development, which would necessitate something like this, obviously the tax revenues from that would more than cover the cost of having to do that. It certainly would be a no-brainer to do that. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that the right-of-way that we're gaining access to is not going anywhere. We aren't selling that property to the owners or anything. Those property lines are staying right where they are. We're now making use of that right-of-way by piling snow, active trails, sidewalks, and being able to use that in case there was a need to add additional lanes in the future. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the lane configuration for the Rough Waters intersection. No change from what we looked at last time. It's that 3 lanes going up from Miramichi Avenue to Rough Waters, and a slip lane turning off, and then coming from Rough Waters, it's coming at a 90-degree turn. You see those hash marks on the right side there in that radius. That's sort of like a mountable area, so that if large tractor trailers we can ensure that they make that turn and not drive over someone's property or grass or anything like that. It's one of those going in right now at the corner of St. Anne St. Peter's. So it'll be something similar to that goes in there.
Right. So we have a question from Deputy Mayor Knowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been wrestling with this one for weeks, maybe months, possibly months there, trying to reconcile everything, what best outcome would be. A few questions. Is the sole criteria appears to be just the traffic volume? Is that the rationale for going from 4 to 2? Incorporating all these cosmetic changes along with it?
Typically, in traffic engineering, volumes are pretty much the only thing we look at, yeah. Type of traffic, size of vehicles, things like that. Yeah.
All these parcels of land on both sides, all the land frontages, what's the cost associated with that? Legal fees, the resurveying, the registering?
Zero.
Minimal, is that factored in, or what are we looking
Zero.
at?
There's no cost there. The property lines stay the same. The property lines won't change at all.
If I'm not mistaken, it still belongs to the city.
Yeah.
It's going to belong to the city.
Yeah, it currently belongs to the city.
And it will continue belonging to the city,
It's,
right?
I'm not sure if it's exactly 20 meters wide, but a typical right-of-way is 20 meters wide. Right now, our 4 lanes and our 2 sidewalks take up the entire 20 meters. What we're looking to do is just go 2 lanes, an active trail, and a sidewalk, which might take up 14 meters. Well, that 6 meters is still the city's. It's still ours to do what we need to do with it. It's a right-of-way just like any other street. I know a lot of residents think that their property goes right to the street line. It doesn't, right? It goes to their property line, which is typically 5 to 6 meters away from the street line. And the city owns a right-of-way there. And that's what would be here, is the city would own to the property lines.
Would there be any consideration keeping it at 4 lanes down as you get to Rough Waters Drive, then down to 3 lanes? You still have your right-of-way coming off?
It's not our recommendation. Our recommendation is 2 lanes. That's what the numbers say.
Not sure about that, everything involved there, but having a hard time with that one. I'll think about this one.
All right. Councillor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the cost, the $1.5 million more, is that what it's costing the city, or is that what's costing the city and the province?
So the project is funded at 78.5%. So a provincially designated highway project, which this is completed by the province. We apply to the province with a number of projects for provincially designated highways. They approve our plan. So it's essentially money that's designated for the city of Bathurst to use on provincially designated highways. So it's money that we'll be able to use on other provincially designated highways. So it's not, we're not saving the province money here by any means. We're saving the city money.
But they don't give us 20 projects in 1 year.
No, we'll be able to extend this project further.
The other one, did you include the cost of the active transportation?
Yeah.
You did?
Yes.
When they made the presentation for the Roy's report, he said he didn't take into consideration the mill site, that we want to put an industrial park there. And the traffic count, as far as I'm concerned, on Miramichi Avenue is because it's in such bad shape. That's why people don't want to use it. I think the count would have been a lot higher if the road would have been in better shape. So I'm still on the same position I was before. I'm definitely not in agreement with this. We have a 4-lane highway leading one of the main arteries leading in the city. I think we should keep it that way. So.
All right, so we're lit up just about everywhere. Councillor Legacy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple quick questions on the Rough Waters entrance-exit here.
Yep.
Was there any consideration leaving Rough Waters, turning right on Miramichi Avenue for a mini bleeder lane that could eventually merge into that? I'm just thinking the big logging trucks trying to turn right, that's going to hold up traffic for a long time if they don't have an easy way out for the people trying to turn left eventually.
You're talking about a logging truck leaving Rough Waters, turning right?
Yes.
Okay, so what's going to alleviate any issues there is the slip lane turning right onto Rough Waters. So whenever you're there now, it's 4 lanes, right? And the people that are traveling in the lane closest to you on Rough Waters, you don't know whether or not they're turning into Rough Waters or not unless they signal very early, and most people don't rely on other people's signals anyway. And so people wait until the cars either go by them or turn into Rough Waters. with that third lane there, it will be very obvious what vehicles are turning into rough waters and what vehicles are continuing straight. And with the low amount of vehicles that are coming up Miramichi Avenue, there'll be tons of gaps. I mean, there's no issue there for large vehicles, especially since we're having that mountable curb there. Any logging truck will be able to kind of start their turn, and once there's a gap, they'll go. I mean, we don't see that being a concern, no.
Because there's also, just by having the 2 lanes, they're going to have less of a berth. So it used to be if there was people going down Miramichi Avenue towards Bridge Street, if they're on the further lane, they could still go. But now if there's just the 1 lane, it's going to be more traffic coming that way, less chance for them to turn. That's why I'm asking if we could have just a small little bleeder lane that merges down into 2 eventually. You can have a yield there, but just to alleviate some of that.
It's possible, but again, with the numbers we have, this is the recommended design. I mean, we could kind of do anything, to be honest there, but
Yeah.
At the end of the day, with the numbers we have, we don't see a need for it.
And coming down Miramichi Avenue and turning left onto Rough Waters, I'm assuming the ones turning right will have the yield.
Yes, yeah, same as any other bleeder lane, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Hondas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question. I know we have 3 options on the table today. No matter what option we pick, is that not going to delay the construction of this? Like, it'll be next year no matter what?
Yeah.
Even if it's 2 or 4?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And the second thing is that if we narrow it down to 2, all the properties that are going to be affected, are those costs of repaving the pave that's there or fixing their lawn, is that included in that?
Yeah.
In that estimate that you gave?
It is, yeah.
Okay, cool. I kind of tend to stand with Councillor Willett on this. Born and bred in East Bathurst, we've always had a 4-lane there. It's a step back for me, I think, if we go to 2. And I respect your answering our questions. I think more of a thing for me is this: we're not looking forward. We're not looking, if we do get the industrial park there, if we have 2 lanes, East Bathurst, Miramichi, and King Avenue, 2 lanes, the access to that's going to be a little tight there. So thanks for your presentation, but I think I know where I stand on it there.
Okay. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate the clarification. One thing that I really appreciate about the presentation is the flexibility to be able to add the slip lane if we went down to a 2-lane. And I would assume that would be something that would be considered with a high increase or a high influx of traffic on that street.
Yeah.
You're talking about capacity at 250%. So it would be, if we're seeing that increasing, the what's the word I'm looking for? We have the ability to put those slip lanes in to squash any issues that may arise.
Exactly, and the slip lanes would only arise if we're having a specific heavy left turn spot.
Correct.
Otherwise, the 2 lanes of traffic, the 2 lanes would handle more than double the traffic quite easily. It's just if you have one spot where everybody's turning left here and there's no gaps coming the other way, then you're having traffic back up, you would need a slip lane there. So it would be analysis of, and in a situation like that, you would have, let's just like, a hospital goes in there. Okay, let's just say that happens. I mean, it's crazy, but like, if the province were to say we want to build a hospital in East Bathurst, we would first ask them for a traffic impact study, and they would tell us we're going to have 2,500 cars a day turning left into this area. Our engineers tell us we need a slip lane there. We would say, okay, no problem. The hospital would pay for that slip lane to go in, right?
Gotcha.
That's how that works.
Right.
If you're having a single point. Now, if the general traffic on Miramichi Avenue increased and it was a left-hand turn lane into Rough Waters because that's where the major development was, then it would be on the city to add a left-hand turning lane into Rough Waters. There's different scenarios, but all of them are way down the road in the future, like 50 years down the road at least, and unless again there's a major breakthrough development somewhere in the area. Yeah.
Like for me, and I totally appreciate other councillors' opinions. For me, I don't see it as going backwards. I see it as going forward, simply because we have the active lane transportation there. That's going forward, in my opinion, and there's a lot of people in town that look for that, and we're very limited on it in areas where we could implement something like that within the city. So I think that that's going forward, and I think it's forward thinking, already knowing that should a situation arise where we're reaching that capacity threshold, that there are measures in place that we can put in to mitigate any issues that may come up.
Certainly.
So for me, I support the 2-lane.
All right. Councillor Branch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. No, I agree with Councillor Anderson. Like, the thing is, we did a strategic plan, and part of that, we wanted to be environmentally responsible. We wanted to promote active living. I don't see $30,000 a year to truck snow someplace as being environmentally responsible when you look at the fuel and everything included in that. Same thing, like, I think the active transportation trail is a good idea. I think it's forward-looking. If I lived along that street, I would much rather look out the 2 lanes and the active living trail and the sidewalk than 4 lanes. I'll be honest with you, like, before I would have never considered living there, just the state, not the state of the road, but how close the houses are to the road. But after this is done, it's a place I would consider living. You look at Bell Bay, you look at the traffic in Bell Bay, there's a significant amount of traffic there, and 2 lanes are fine. I went up there today on my lunch to get something. I had no problem turning left to get back out and come to town. Like, it's not an issue. I've lived in Big River a lot of years. 2 lanes up there. I mean, they're logging trucks. There are all kinds of tractor trailers. There's trucks with equipment. Like, I seen somebody back a truck in a driveway like multiple times, come home from lunch, back a tractor trailer in or a float with a piece of equipment on it, no issues, right? So, like, I don't see where all these issues that people are bringing up would be valid. I guess that's about it. I think that we'd be far better off with the 2 lanes. It would be a better service for the people that are living there, and I don't think it would affect businesses. I just don't see the growth.
Right, so we're still lit up. Councillor Scarry?
Having a bit of I appreciate all the work that's gone into this in regards to all the possibilities. I have talked to a number of business people that are in the industrial park right now and that are thinking about further development, and there is a bit of a concern going down from 4 lanes to the 3 or to a 2 lane. It is still somewhat of those things. I mean, there are the key points for each and every one of them. I am still having a little bit of a quandary or a little bit of a hard time to adjust to taking it down from the 4 lanes, but do appreciate all the work that's been done. So it just, again, having talked to a number of business people in that area, there has been some concern in that regard.
All right, Councillor Hondas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Keep talking about these slip lanes. What would a cost be associated to that later on if we needed to put one in there? Is it a big cost? Is it just for argument's sake or for information, I guess?
So, like I said, if it's for appointed development for a large, if a large grocery store or something went in there, then they would put the bill for that because they're causing the increase in cost. But if it is just a general increase, just a general boom across the whole area of 250, 300% increase in traffic, then the city would be looking at that, and we'd be looking at about 100 meters of widening of street. So it's just removing the curbs, paving 2 extra strips, and putting new curbs in. So we're probably looking at $100,000 or so would be something we would look at. Yeah.
Councillor Branch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one more thing I want to add. A lot of times you hear on the table, like, when things are being questioned, people say we have to trust the experts. So we went here, we had an engineering firm look at it. That's what the recommendation is. We have 2 engineers sitting here in this room, Mr. Abernathy and Mr. Pettigrew. So I guess, is it fair for me, Madam Mayor, to ask, like, if Mr. Pettigrew sees any issues. Like Mr. Abernathy doesn't sound like he sees any major issues with the 2 lanes. Like, I think it's just sentimentality that people are hanging on to this 4-lane thing, but.
All right, so I did ask our CAO, and he's more than willing to add his
Thank you, Worship.
expertise.
Definitely would concur with the recommendation. It's pretty straightforward, the ability to expand is there. You have adaptability to expand in the future. You're not limiting yourself, and it's a agree 100% with the recommendation.
All right, so hold on, I'll give you the mic again, Councillor Branch, because only allows so many people to speak.
No, that was it.
You're good?
Thank you.
All right, okay, so we're still lit up. Councillor Legacy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When this study was done, was there the traffic count also done on rough waters? Like, I'm just wondering, would we be better off potentially putting in a slip lane, turning left to rough waters now than waiting and seeing and then having to do it after, but it would just be our cost? This way we can include some of the provincial funding as well.
It's certainly doable. The numbers don't warrant it, for sure. No, not even close. No. And again, that right-hand turn onto rough waters is going to alleviate.
I'm saying left-hand turn.
Yeah, but that left-hand turn onto rough waters now, you're only crossing 1 lane of traffic, not 2, and any vehicles that are coming up Miramichi Avenue, the ones that are turning right have already peeled off, so you're not worried about them. You're only worried about the traffic that's continuing up Miramichi Avenue, which is very, very low, right? There's plenty of gaps there. There's no issue making that left-hand turn. Yeah.
Okay.
Because right now you have 2 lanes, and you have the people that are going to turn right that might not have their blinker on, or they have their blinker on, and you're probably not willing to risk, okay, they're turning, so I'm good to go. Whereas now they'll be in their own lane, they'll be in their own slip lane, they're gone. You're not worried about them at all. You're just worrying about the traffic coming in that single lane next to you. It's significantly easier to turn left there. Yeah.
No, I drive that every morning, and I see the backups all the time and the high traffic times, so I disagree with that point, but okay.
Councillor Willett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to, Councillor Branch said we got to trust everybody, the engineers and that, but the engineer firm, when we had the report from the engineering firm, they didn't take into account having another industrial park on the old mill site. And I've also talked to different businesses on Miramichi Avenue, and they told me it was a bad idea as far as they were concerned for their business to fall back again on a 2-lane road. So basically, like I said before, I think if the count would have been a lot different if that road wouldn't have, been a Canada Wonderland roller coaster driving up and down on it, we would have had a lot more people using it. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, Councillor Hondas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question on this drawing right here. Is that curve that's going on to rough waters, that's where the Chicken King is?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to be just going into rough waters? So when you're coming out of rough waters, you're going to be taking the other intersection? Is that my understanding?
Exactly, yeah.
So this is like basically where the old garage was there? Is that
Exactly.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So will there be a set of lights there?
No.
If anything? No lights. So you're going to just ask people to be nice and not make accidents there?
Well, that's what we're doing now.
It's significantly better than what's there.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I'm just saying it's just somewhere along the way, like Stephen was saying, he lives there and he goes there a lot, so it's just a lot of traffic. As per what we're doing today, it's not we're not questioning what you're doing. Is that we have the right to have our opinions on how we see things, and maybe this is a good design. We trust you. We've trusted you every other time. Just this time, we're thinking you might be the decision we're going to make is going to impact more than just what we think about what you're recommending. So it's nothing personal here. It's just we're looking at the citizens. Other councillors seem to think that that's the way that we look at it, but that's not the way it is. We're just looking at what we know from that part of the region, living there all our lives, and this might be the wrong way to go.
I certainly appreciate that, and I'm not taking any offense to any comments that are being made. I mean, the recommendations is there. It's you certainly have the right to vote however you.
All right, so we're still lit up. Conseiller Leblanc.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Je sais que pour la sortie, conseiller Lagacé, il a raison. Souvent, on est pris là à attendre pour virer à gauche. C'est très complexe. Mais je pense que la solution qu'il nous propose va réduire ça de beaucoup. J'ai été pris moi-même là à attendre des fois des 4-5 minutes, là, presque, parce que les chars qui tournent, puis c'est comme tu dis. S'ils ont pas, je sais pas, moi, s'ils vont tourner là ou s'ils vont continuer tout droit. Mais tandis que là, tous ceux-là qui sont dans la ligne de droite, c'est sûr que les autres, c'est pas un danger. Ça nous permet de tourner. Avec ça, je pense que ça va éradiquer un peu. Une autre chose, en parlant avec moi aussi, des gens, justement, dans le parc industriel, une chose que, il y en a un, en tout cas, en particulier, que lui, il s'était fait dire que ça allait être 2 voies tout le... Lui, il savait pas que ça allait rester 4 voies jusqu'à la dernière entrée du parc industriel. Lui, il pensait que ça allait devenir 2 voies. Fait que ça, je pense que il faut quand même être clair que c'est 4 voies jusque presque l'ancien Horizon Molding. Je ne me rappelle plus ce que ça s'appelle aujourd'hui. Ça fait. Puis les options que tu nous offres, j'aurais été game de descendre à 3. Moi je préférais descendre à 3 qu'il n'y ait pas d'entente. Là. Mais je pense qu'avec tout ce que j'ai vu et tout ce que je peux comprendre de ce projet ici, et j'ai le lis et le relis et je veux supporter mes collègues, mais la présentation me fait plus que du bon sens. Écoute, si on parle de justement le Active Living, que je fais la promotion depuis que je suis sur le Conseil, la beauté aussi que ça va offrir à la rue et l'opportunité que ça va donner aux gens que aujourd'hui, les dernières maisons ou les premières dépendances, si tu viens de la ville, si tu viens de l'autre sens, les dernières avant d'arriver aux Lumières, écoute, ils sont collés sur la rue. Là, ça lui donne vraiment une opportunité de pas recevoir de la neige dans le châssis. Pour moi, vous avez fait votre devoir. Si ça empêche un vote, j'y voterai pour le 3. Si ça, on pourrait avoir un consensus là-dessus, mais je suis d'accord avec le 2. De toutes les façons que je l'analyse, et que ce soit le trafic, comment qu'on triplerait le trafic, on est encore dans des normes, même si on bâtit, on bâtit un nouveau parc industriel en bas, je suis d'accord avec ça, c'est un projet merveilleux pour l'avenir, mais quand même qu'on le commencera aujourd'hui avant qu'il y ait du développement assez là-dedans pour augmenter le trafic, on parle de au moins 20-25 ans. Ça fait que pour toutes ces raisons-là, je suis d'accord avec option 2, mais si c'est option 3 que ça prend pour passer le projet, je voterai pour option 3.
Okay. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple things. One thing, just in referring to Councillor Willis' comments about a potential industrial park, it's going to be a 2-lane road to an industrial park should one be created around the old mill site. So I don't understand what the difference would be if we were at a 2-lane, and I'm asking the question. I don't understand what the difference would be if we're at a 2-lane on Miramichi Avenue and we ended up developing industrial park. It's a 2-lane road there that cannot be changed from a 2-lane. So I don't understand where the issue would lie with that, first of all. And secondly, in regards to it being bad for people's businesses, I would just like more clarification on what the ramifications on businesses would be should it go down to a 2-lane road. Mm-hmm.
So you're asking the question to Councillor? No. Yeah. Oh, your mic is off. Okay. All right.
For me, it's an important comment that if it would in fact impede people's businesses or livelihoods, I would like to know how that would happen, and I think it's an important comment to look into.
All right. Councillor Willett, you're going to answer that one? Okay.
The people that I've talked to that have businesses are saying if it goes down to 2 lanes, then people, if there's too much traffic, they won't stop at their business. If they start having a hard time to pull out of a business, that you're on Miramichi Avenue and you're trying to pull out, there's only 2 lanes, you can't really have a good chance to pull out, it's not going to happen. Second of all, I don't think, Matt, you can probably clarify that to me, the 4-lane is not going right from Bridge Street to the entrance of the industrial park, right?
So the reduction is from Miramichi Avenue to the last street, which is Victor, I believe, is that street. There's Foley and Victor. So Foley is the one closer to, I think that's the one with JC Enterprises on it. And then Victor is the furthest one, which is the one that you would use to access the Bayview trucking, and there's a self-storage area there. So from Victor to the highway will remain 4 lanes.
Okay, and
From Victor to Miramichi Avenue, to Bridge Street is going to be reduced down to 3. 1, sorry. I'm sorry, 2. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my concern. And the study didn't take into account what it would happen with an industrial site on the mill site. So they didn't look at that whatsoever. So if you got your traffic count on a street that's really bad and people are trying to avoid it as much as they can, and the people that are driving on it is because they can't avoid it. So that's my take on it.
All right. So we're lit up again. Conseiller Leblanc?
Yeah, I was, okay, the initial meeting you had said Victor, and I went and saw that, and I said, yeah, that's not, it really should go down to Foley. I will say that, and then the last time I was told, oh no, that was a mistake, it was supposed to be Foley. So if it's Victor, that I can't really agree with though, because if you go up there, it really should, the 4 has almost to go down still to there. There's buildings there where there's a lot of big trucks that turn on both sides of that street, really right down to the old Horizon. So with that in mind, I would really want the 3 lane, if that's what it's gonna, because to me that, we're cutting it off too early. That was a big part of my decision right there.
Okay. Councillor Branch?
Miramichi versus Bell Bay. Like
In the numbers
Bell
that we
Bay.
had back then,
Is
Mr.
Bell Bay
Abernathy?
twice, 3 times?
Yeah, so it's on Miramichi Avenue, we're at 3815, I think, 3850, let's just say roundly, 3,850. In Beresford, it's between 12,000 and 15,000, I believe, 12 or 13, yeah.
And they have 2 lanes, and like I say, their businesses are thriving. There are no issues. Like I say, I went up there today at lunch, no problem, turning left to get out and get back home. So again, I don't see our traffic count increasing from 3,850 to 12,000. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we have options on the table that we have to make a decision. I never shy away from giving my opinion, so I'm going to give my opinion because I believe that a mayor should not sit here and hide behind our council and say that's the council's decision. I believe that there's been a lot of work that was put into this. The fact that coming out of the industrial park still stays on the 4 lane, I personally agree with the 2 lane. I think that that would be your best option, and I totally agree. If Belleville can have 12,000 to 15,000 cars per day, and they have no problem coming out of their CV or leur Independent or Tim Hortons, you know, I've making my way to Petit Rocher, go to Tim Hortons, stand there and manage to go in and get back out to make my way back up to Petit Rocher. Have to wait maybe a couple of minutes. And the fact that it would give us a nice bike lane on the side as well, personally, I think that's the option. Now, on the table, 3 lane was never part of the, we brought the 3 lane. Don't think Roy Consultant recommended the 3 lane. So today I am bringing at the table a 2 lane or a 4 lane. I will go to council. I need directions from a 2 lane to a 4 lane. If you disagree and you want a 3 lane, please speak up, but I will go individually. And then from there, then we will go to an actual vote. Councillor Hondas, before I go to the vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just like the point that Jean-Francois or Councillor LeBlanc made, I was always under the impression that the 4 lanes would go to Foley. Now, how big a job would that be or different to bring it down to there? Because that's the main entry to the existing industrial park that we have now. So would it be done, if you're going from a 4-lane to a 2-lane to a 3-lane, that's going to be confusing enough, but I was under the impression we were going to Foley, because I remember we had a discussion, Councillor LeBlanc and I, and he kind of clarified that that's what was proposed, but then when he spoke to somebody, or I think he brought it to some of my attention, that he had said that it was going to go down to Foley for the 4 lanes. So coming out or going in, I think we'd have a little bit more access to the 4 lane going that way.
So just to clarify, what we're talking about doing next year is not the entire project, right?
Yeah.
The entire project is a multi-year project. So what we're talking about doing next year is from, there's the Bridge Street rebuild, which we've already been awarded, and then we're doing the Miramichi Avenue section that we're most likely going to be able to do is between Bridge Street and Mont Carmel. That's as far as we can go this year.
Everything else stays a 4-lane.
Everything else is going to stay as is. There's going to be a small transition area. It's going to stay as 4 lanes. And then subsequent provincially designated highway program, whenever the funding comes in, we will continue adding on and complete the project. So before we get to that end, you'll have a very good idea of how it works as 2 lanes, and we can make a decision at that point.
Okay, so that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Because for this evening, we're only talking to go up to Carmel Road. All right.
And we could add the condition to come back for another decision prior to making our way past Foley as well. We can add that in the...
Exactly.
That's something we can do. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Councillor Willett.
Yeah. When you start the project, you start the project. So we're not going to mix. We're not going to go back. If it doesn't work, we're not going to come back from Bridge Street to Mont Carmel and redo it to a 4-lane. So basically, it doesn't matter. If we start the project, we're going with a 2-lane. We're not going to change the project back to a 4-lane afterwards. So.
No, we were talking about Foley to the highway,
Yeah.
right? Not the rest. So we wouldn't be changing anything else. The decision we're making tonight to go to 2 lanes from Bridge Street to Mont Carmel would certainly be final. We wouldn't be changing any projects back. What we would be coming back to council for would be the recommendation to continue as 2-lane past Foley, or to remain at 4 lanes on the other side of Foley. We wouldn't be changing any of the existing project.
All right. Councillor Anderson, 2-lane or 4-lane?
2.
All right. Councillor Willett, 2-lane or 4-lane?
4-lane.
Councillor Burnett, 2-lane or 4-lane?
2.
Conseiller Leblanc, 2 ou 4?
2.
Councillor Branch, 2 lanes or 4 lanes?
6. 2. 2.
Thank you for kind of, All right. Councillor Scary, 2-lane or 4-lane?
4.
Councillor Legacy, 2-lane or 4-lane?
2.
Deputy Mayor Knowles, 2 lanes or 4 lanes?
4 lanes.
Councillor Hondas, 2 lanes or 4 lanes?
4.
All right. I'm looking at our city clerk. What do we have at the table?
The resolution that was provided in the package is for 2 lanes, and that's what the majority is.
Okay. So now Ms. Parker is going to read the resolution. I will go to the vote, and I will, just to confirm, everybody for, raise your hand, and then against, raise your hand to make sure that we have the proper count. Ms. Parker.
Whereas the city has identified Miramichi Avenue as a priority area under the Provincial Municipal Highway Partnership Program, PMHP, for the coming years, and whereas the City of Bathurst contracted Roy Consultants to complete a traffic analysis report for Miramichi Avenue, and whereas City Engineer Matthew Abernathy presented the traffic analysis Miramichi Avenue Lane reduction study during the regular public meeting held on May 5th, 2025, be it resolved that the members of council hereby receive and accept the Miramichi Avenue Lane reduction study completed by Roy Consultants as presented by City Engineer Matthew Abernathy on May 5th, 2025, and approve the recommended change from 4 lanes to 2 lanes as outlined in the study.
All right. I'll need someone to move. Councillor Branch, seconded by Councillor Burnett. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Against, raise your hand. 4. All right. Motion carried.
You got to put your hand back up.
Okay. Against, raise your hand. So we had Scary. Yeah. Honda's. Okay. Willett. Yeah. You're good?
Yep.
All
Thank
right,
you.
good. Thank you. All right. So, reports from administration. So, Mr. Abernathy, I'm just going to go to your mic because we will be doing, yeah. So, it's a update for road work by your city engineer. I'll be giving you the mic, Mr. Abernathy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So a quick update on the projects. I know a lot of people have been asking what the status is of those projects. So starting out with St. Anne Street, the curbs and asphalt are looking to be finalized, if not done by the end of this week, by middle of next week. And then there's going to be some cleanup and some driveway work to do, a little bit of topsoil, and then things should be opening back up by the end of next week. So they have in their project timeline as everything completed, cleaned up, everything by November 21st. They're slightly ahead of that schedule, so look to have that project completed by before November 21st. There's still up in the air whether or not they're going to be completing some of the sod work. The majority of it is done there now. There might be some touch-ups that need to be done in the spring. There is some extra work that needs to be done on Evangeline, so we're going to be paving an extra section of Evangeline from St. Anne Street towards past Hennessy and Verily there. We did a section of Evangeline a few years ago. It's all brand new. We're going to end up connecting that with asphalt and finishing that section in there. So that'll be done in the spring. We won't have time to get to that this year, so that'll be completed in the spring. Some of you may have noticed at the top of the hill, St. Anne and St. Peter, there's kind of two parallel curbs there. That's one of those mountable curbs for trucks to be able to mount that first curb. So the point is that the inside curb is there so that vehicles remain in the right position to make the turn onto St. Anne, whereas the overflow is designed only for the rear end of a 53-foot trailer to kind of mount on top of that and go, so most vehicles will stay on the road. So that's why you see two curbs there. It looks a little strange to the eye right now, but it'll all come together whenever they finalize that. So like I said, everything looking to be done, cleaned up, and online by November 21st. Chaleur Street, a little bit of a different story. It got started quite a bit later. And so they are looking to have their asphalt completed on the street on November 21st. So they're still going to have some cleanup work to do, some retaining walls, some concrete work. Right now, up in the air is whether or not we're going to be able to get the sidewalk in this year. And the reason for that is concrete degrades significantly if it's frozen. So if we're going to take a look at what the added cost is to heat that concrete and get that in this year. And if we're able to do that, then we'll go ahead with that. If not, it'll go to the spring, and there'll certainly be final touches like topsoil and sod and possibly some driveway cleanup and stuff like that happening in the spring there as well. But tentatively looking to have that asphalt done on the 21st. They'll continue working there as long as they can. It'll be into December before they get cleaned up and everything for this year. But weather will largely dictate what time of year they stop. But they're aiming to get the asphalt in by November 21st. Certainly going to get at least base asphalt in this year. If weather permits, we'll get the seal down as well. But we're going to be looking to get that base down by November 21st. So that is pretty much it. If anyone has any questions, I'm sure we have to answer.
I do have a question. So I see that St. Anne has been paved right up to close to Evangeline. Mm-hmm. When is that going to open? Is there a possibility that can actually open before going to November 21st?
The lights at the intersection are not installed yet, so those need to be installed by the end of next week.
Okay.
It's going to largely depend on when those lights get in. We can't really open traffic at that intersection before those, because there's a lot of work that has to get done. Not only is it traffic the concern, it's that the utility trucks have to be parked in the intersection to do that work. So to open that now, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
And so right now they have project completion on September 7th. So everything cleaned up is November 21st. That doesn't mean the road's going to be, like, the road's supposed to be paved this week. So there's a chance once they get those posts in, they'll be able to open up that street, possibly late next week, mid next week, late next week. That's a possibility. So November 21st is everything buttoned up. They're gone on November 21st.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm asking is because I'm receiving a lot of calls. I don't know if you are, and I've always been asked, well, why didn't they just finish that corner? So, for transparency, for people to know, you need the light, you need everything else there. It's not just, it's paved and we're ready to go.
Yep.
There's more legwork that comes with it.
Yeah, the original intent was to do it in 2 sections, but the work at the intersection significantly complicated things. There was a lot of materials that needed to be ordered. There was differences in bases that needed to go in and everything. There was complications there, and we didn't have the legal authority, I guess, either a contractual ability to force them to do that, essentially. So, in the end, it ended up going as it did, and it is what it is. Yeah.
Okay. So, Councillor Burnett?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My question is on the lights. The lights were always a problem for those with special needs in order to get the crosswalks working, et cetera, et cetera. Is there going to be time to paint the crosswalks in so that people will know where they got to go? Like you couldn't get across before in certain ways, but I was told that they were going to correct all that with the new lights and with the new system for the crosswalks and that. Is that still happening?
Mr. Pettigrew? Mr. Abernathy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, total redesign of both intersections is being done, and yes, the paint will be in. It's probably not going to last very well, but we'll be redoing it in the next year. Typically, paint that goes in at this type of weather doesn't stay, so we'll put it in and we'll hope for the best, and then next year we'll certainly redo it all. But yes, the total redesign of both intersections is getting.
Because a lot of people couldn't even reach the buttons last time.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. The drop curves were in the wrong places. There were sidewalks to nowhere. Yeah.
Thank you.
Being so short. Councillor Hondas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not really a question, more of a comment. I do appreciate the update. I think a lot of people were wondering where we were headed with this, so it's nice to see that you took it forth and got it done. It's going to be great once it's done. I know it's always say, excuse the mess, this is progress, but I think it's going to be good. But I appreciate the update, Mr. Abernathy. I think so will the citizens of Bathurst, knowing that it should be done by the end of the month. So.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Parker, do we have any committee reports?
There are no committee reports.
All right, we'll go to the mayor's report. Tomorrow evening on November 4th, there will be a community information session. It will be held at the K.C. Irving Paul Ouellette Room, and the information session is to discuss the potential new location for the bridge housing for the homeless. So if you have any questions or any concerns, we encourage you to come and join us. It's between 6 and 8 p.m. It will not be a town hall. There will be departments there, and we will be there to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. Demain soir, le 4 novembre, on va avoir une séance d'information communautaire qui aura lieu dans la salle Paul Ouellette au K.C. Irving afin de discuter la nouvelle emplacement possible pour le projet de logement transitoire pour les personnes sans abri. Si vous avez des questions ou des préoccupations, on vous invite à venir nous joindre. C'est de 6h, 18h à 20h. On va avoir des tables, vous allez avoir la chance de venir discuter avec certains départements, mais la session est pour répondre aux questions que vous avez. As well, this Wednesday, November 5th, it's Take Your Kid to Work Day. And I remember my girls participated in that, and it's usually grade 9 students. So we understand that not all students are able to find a placement, and especially with some of the parents, as their workplace may not be able to accommodate them. So we were approached by Bathurst High School and myself and our city clerk, Amy Lynn. We are pleased to say that we are going to have 10 to 12 grade 9 students with us Wednesday morning as of 9 a.m. And we have a full itinerary planned for them, and we're really looking forward to it. So we'll be planning everything, but yes, we have a group of students with us Wednesday morning for the day. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. No, listen, they're very bright young students. Fait ce mercredi, je vais le dire en français aussi, c'est la journée dont on amène nos enfants au travail pour les élèves de la 9e année. Nous comprenons que certains élèves n'ont pas toujours la chance d'avoir un placement ou d'être en mesure d'aller avec leurs parents, tout dépendant le genre de travail que les parents font. Fait pour cette raison, Bathurst High School nous a approchés et la ville de Bathurst va faire un partenariat avec eux, dont moi-même et notre greffière, Émeline, on va avoir le plaisir d'accueillir 10 à 15 élèves à l'hôtel de ville, dont on a une journée d'activité complète de réservée. We're even going to visit the police station. So, on a une visite au poste de police. On a tout plein. We've got this. Right, Emeline? Également, ce mercredi 5 novembre, le Musée de patrimoine de Bathurst tiendra son assemblée générale annuelle à compter de 18h30. Je vous invite tous ceux et celles qui sont intéressés à y assister. Ça va être une belle soirée. So, on Wednesday, November 5th, the Bathurst Heritage Museum will be holding its annual general meeting. It begins at 6:30. I encourage everyone to attend. If you haven't had an opportunity to visit the Heritage Museum, I will be there as well. Et aussi, cette semaine est la Semaine nationale de l'immigration francophone, dont il va y avoir plusieurs activités qui vont avoir lieu cette semaine avec l'Association multiculturelle et avec l'Association francophone des municipalités, dont sur leur page Facebook, vous allez être en mesure de trouver certaines activités qui vont avoir lieu cette semaine. That is my mayor's report. We will go to the adjournment of the meeting.
That the regular public meeting be adjourned at 7:51 p.m.
All right, I'll need someone to move. Hondas? No. Okay. Councillor Legacy, okay. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Knowles. Ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried. Merci d'être avec nous ce soir. Bonne soirée.